Hi, Chan. These NFL studio shows on the networks, the ESPN NFL network, have a lot of time to kill, so they're often talking in recent days of whether Tua should be playing. And one former player, Ryan Clark, the former safety, made the point that even though Fitzpatrick should be the starter at this point, there should be a package for Tua to get him game experience just in case Ryan should go down, so he's not thrown in first time without ever having taken an NFL snap. Have you guys discussed that, or do you believe a package for Tua every game would be disruptive to your offense?
Well, I think that's a question for Coach Flores. He talks about all personnel decisions and things that we're thinking and trying to get done during the course of the season.
Armando?
Morning, Chan. So I know that your unit matches up against the opposing team's defense. I get that. But when the opposing team's offense is averaging 37 points a game, do you feel like there's a sense of, any sense of, we have to, produce this game maybe more so than other games because they're going to score a lot of points and we need to do the same, if not more?
Well, that would be assuming that they're going to, score a lot of points against our defense. And I think our offense has a lot of confidence in our defense. But the objective every week is to score one more point. I don't think we feel any more pressure one week than the next week. We don't think about that. We think about scoring every drive. That's what we think about. So until we accomplish that, we haven't arrived. And so our mindset is we need to score every drive.
Steve Wine.
Morning, Chan. What is the challenge for the offensive coordinator? What is the challenge like with Mike Gesicki trying to make the most of the very interesting combination of tools that he has?
Well, you want to create situations where he has creases in zones when the zone defense, and then you want to get him in a position where he can win one-on-one because most of the time he's going to line up against a strong safety or a linebacker. So you're trying to create as many positions or places for him to line up and to execute the things he does best. And that is a challenge week to week because defenses are different. So we have to go out and see how the defense is playing and then get it situated. And some weeks it works out and some weeks it doesn't.
Joe Shad.
Good morning, Chan. It's good to see you. Have you seen enough from Austin Jackson and Solomon Kinley, 3 games of tape now, to say, you know what? I know these guys are going to be good NFL players. In fact, I think they have what it takes to be good NFL players for a long time.
Well, obviously those two have played pretty well thus far. They've got a lot to learn. To say a guy's going to be a player for a long time, I wish I had that ability. I'd make a lot of money, but I don't have that ability. They're playing well right now. They need to continue to improve, which they can, and they do have that ability, though. They do have the ability to be a very good player before it's over with.
Adam?
Yeah, I want to ask about the other rookie offensive lineman, Robert Hunt. It seems like since the first snap of practice, we got to see that Kinley was the starter and Hunt was coming off the bench. How would you assess how he's developed since then and what he needs to do to get on the field?
Hunt's done a good job. He really has. He's a good athlete. He's a strong player. He's a very strong man. He's got some more learning to do, which they all do, but he especially has some more learning to do and to learn the speed of the game. We're trying to work him in and goal line, get him some snaps, get him some plays so that he knows better the speed of the game and what it's going to take to play there. But he's another good athlete. The thing that right now is the continuity and the communication with our offensive line has been pretty good. And so we're trying to keep that going.
Hal?
Hi, Chad. I wanted to ask you about Gaskin. At what point in training camp, or maybe before, I don't know, at what point did he start to emerge as a guy who is going to be more or less a go-to back for you?
Well, I'm not sure we had in mind who was going to do what going into training camp. And the only guy that we had any experience with, Eric, our running back coach, knew Miles and thought he was going to be a good player. But we just kind of let it work itself out during the course of training camp and the first couple of weeks. And he's been the most productive. So the most productive guys play the most right now. That's just the way it is. Whether that continues, we'll see. But that's the way it's proven to be thus far.
Safin?
Hey, Coach. Good morning. I wanted to ask, Tua's stopping college. He dealt with 3 different offensive coordinators. And I want to know, I guess, his mastery of your offense. Where do you think it is right now? And are there any principles or any kind of, schemes or anything that you incorporate in your offense that maybe resemble something that he's used to seeing at Alabama?
There have been a few times where he said, yeah, we did something similar to that. So, but, every offense is unique, and really it's a language and it's a learning process that he is going through. The great thing is he gets to sit there and listen to one of what I think is the greatest minds in football, and that's Fitz. He gets to listen to him talk about defenses, talk about protections, talk about all that kind of football stuff that you don't really get in college. So it's a different game here than it was in college, and he's picked it up very well thus far. But he's still got some more to learn, which I think he would tell you the same thing.
All right, we have time for 2 more. We'll go to Barry.
Hi, Chan. Do you think either Malcolm Perry or Lynn Bowden are able to help you at this time, or is there just still too much for them to learn and polish to help you yet?
Yeah, you'd like to. They both look like they're going to be pretty good football players. You would like to get them on the field and get them involved, but the guys we've got on the field right now are being fairly productive. So you'd have to force something to make that happen. And probably before we get through with the season, we're going to have to count on one of those guys to come in and do something for us. So I think that them just learning, Lynn hadn't been here very long, and Malcolm is converting to wide receiver. So they both have a lot of things to learn yet about the game. So I think they've got a chance to be good players, but when they get involved, I couldn't give you a timetable on that.
All right, final question to Joe Shad.
Chan, Thursday, went well. What are some of the things that you took away that you kind of learned from Thursday?
I learned this, and I thought this all along, but I think the players got a better sense of confidence of what we're capable of. That's what I wanted. I want them to come out of that game with is this is what we're capable of, guys. Now, if we go execute and we do the little things, we're capable of putting points on the board and going down there 3 straight times. There's no rule against that. You can do that. So let's keep that confidence level and prepare for this week and get ready to go to the next one.
Josh, just wanted to ask you, I'm doing something on Bobby McCain. What more can you get out of him and out of that position this year? I mean, he's in his I think he started now his 12th game. He's going to start his 12th game at safety. What do you expect out of that position in this defense?
Well, we asked Bobby to do a number of different things. I would say one, his leadership that he brings to the defense. I would say he's a good communicator. He's able to, I would say, pre-snap, make sure that we're aligned correctly. And, I would say his reads and breaks based on what we ask him to do in the deep part of the field, I think have been good. He had the big pass breakup for us a week ago. Bobby's been playing really good football. And like everybody, we're hoping that, we continue to improve. I mean, really the month of September in the NFL is really for improvement, and all of us are working hard to do that.
Armando?
Hi, Josh. So last week, obviously the result was different on the surface. Take us below the surface. What was different that made that defense look better, play better?
Well, I think it starts with the team win. I think all three phases we were able to play complementary football. We had good field position. We were able to win the time of possession. So the offense was moving the ball. They were scoring. We were able to get off the field and get some stops, get some turnovers. So it was a good team win. I thought the players played hard. So obviously the results were a little bit better for us.
Josh?
Hey, Josh, looking ahead to this weekend, what type of challenge does Russell Wilson present, and just what's the kind of message to the defensive unit throughout this week?
Yeah, I would say he presents an immense challenge, and he seems to be getting better each year, which is hard to do because he's played at a high level for a long time. And, he's very good at reading defenses. He's very good at making all the throws. He's very good at extending plays and making things happen that way, whether he runs or throws. It's a huge challenge, and he's got a good cast around him. He's got a solid O-line. He's got a good group of skill players, the receivers, the tight ends, his backs. And then, I think, Coach Schottenheimer does a good job of mixing his play calls. And, he can definitely dial up some calls against, certain fronts, certain coverages that, I think it's all rolling for him, which obviously, they've produced a lot of points in these first 3 weeks of the season.
Adam?
I wanted to ask you about your linebackers. Obviously, Jerome and Van Noy are getting a ton of snaps. I don't know if you consider Jack a linebacker or a defensive end, just an edge defender. But after those three, you play a pretty good rotation of Roberts, Hoosier Hill, and Van Ginkel. Based on what we've seen on film, can you just kind of give us your mindset into who does what well, how you've decided the rotation with those three guys, and are some stronger against the run than the pass?
Yeah, I think that it starts with, one, what do they do well individually? Two, what are we trying to structurally do from week to week? And then I think the play time, obviously, if, a guy's making the most of his opportunities and we feel like it's a good position to put him in, those will continue. If we feel like it's a certain set or certain situation that maybe somebody else is better, then that's what we go with on that. So I think, all those guys have had an important role for us. All of them will continue to have a role for us. And, again, like we're asking of everybody is to keep improving, and we need to get better.
Safid?
Hey, Coach. As a play caller, having Cam Newton and Josh Allen and Russell Wilson in your first month, that must suck, man. How are you kind of, preparing for this? Did you look at the month of September and your schedule and like, man, I have a really tough schedule coming up? Did you try to piece it all together, like having a plan before the month started of each guy, or are you taking this week by week? And how do you take this challenge as a play caller this week?
Well, I would say for me individually, I mean, it starts, with the same thing that we ask our players to do. I just try to take, the day that's at hand and try to get the most work and improvement that I can in that day. Obviously, we look at the schedule. Obviously, we go through teams in the, off season of what you think it could be, what it might be. And again, like I said, really September is for improvement. And I mean, I start with myself. I need to continue to get better. Our coaching staff, those guys are working hard to continue to get better. Our players, those guys are working hard. Different opponents, they bring up different challenges. I think it's hard in this league to win on a week-to-week basis, so all those things you take into consideration. But I think it all starts with your work, your effort, and your ability to improve over time, because things don't stay the same. I mean, they either get better or they get worse. So and I think all of our effort, energy, and time is at the day at hand. And like this week, it happens to be Seattle. So that's where our time and energy is spent, and then next week it'll be somebody else.
Travis?
Hey, Coach, want to go back to a couple of questions ago, referring to Jerome Baker. He's played 177 snaps this year, roughly 97% of the reps. He's one of two guys that has over 90% of the snaps on the defense. I'm curious, what is the common thread between those types of players that can play that much, and what does Jerome do, in your opinion, to warrant that many reps?
Well, I would say the first thing is he's in good physical condition. So he's able to take as many reps as we can give him, and he's been productive for us. He works hard. He's been all over the field. We've asked him, and he's got the mental capacity that he can handle multiple roles. So that with the physical condition, we think we're putting him in positions to succeed. And he's shown the ability to make plays. So that's all of a culmination of him being out there as much as he is.
Hal?
Hi, Josh. What did you learn from those first couple of games as far as what went right and what went wrong in your ability to contain mobile quarterbacks? What did you learn from those games that you can apply to the challenge that Russell Wilson presents?
Well, I think you always go back and no matter what the game is, whether it's the run game, mobile quarterback, pass game, I mean, you're always evaluating what you're doing. You're evaluating your players and, are we putting them in the right position? I think there's definitely things that have come up that we've learned that, some things, that we can do and do well, and we'll continue to roll doing those. And then there's other things that, that haven't worked out so great. And then obviously we're going to try to stay away from those. But I think you're always self-evaluating, always, looking at things, big picture of how you improve and how you get better. And, instead of, trying to beat your head against the wall and be like, well, this is the way it is and this is what it's going to be. I think for us, we're pretty fluid and we'll be able to adapt week to week. And I think again, like I said, a lot of it, starts with me, that I need to be better. And, we'll ask the players to be better. We'll ask our coaches to be better and to continue to improve till we, that we put a pretty good product out there on the field on Sundays.
Joe?
Hey, Josh, I wanted to ask you about Igbenogany. He seemed to tackle well on Thursday. He bounced back overall, seemed pretty well from a tough game the week before. What did you see from Igbenogany in terms of bouncing back? But the one play also, if I can just ask you, was that just a mental error when Conley got behind him? Did he think he had safety help on that play?
Well, I mean, again, structurally, I mean, there's some things that happen. And I mean, I'll probably never talk about specific plays or we're doing this or we're doing that. I just want to, I think, things sometimes can put you at a competitive disadvantage if you talk about scheme that way. But as far as Noah, he's a mentally tough kid, and we knew that when we drafted him. I would say, I think the expectation was, all of our guys, not just Noah, but everybody, and all of our guys that Chris and Flo have brought in here are, physically and mentally tough kids, and we're going to be, they're going to be able to handle adversity and and bounce back. And I mean, that's kind of the expectation. And good, bad, or indifferent, like we don't dwell a lot on the past. We'll study from it. We don't dwell a lot on it. We try to get better from it and then move forward because, another game's coming. So that's kind of how we approach it. Hopefully that answers your questions there, Joe.
We have time for one more. We'll go to Omar.
Victory is mine. I wanted to know, because everybody talks about Brian Flores and this coaching staff. If you perform well in practice, you'll play or they'll find a role for you that week. What does performing well look like to you guys?
Well, I would say, first of all, it probably goes back to an assignment thing. You can handle your assignments, alignment, all that. And then actually the execution of practice, which is something that I know, like I'll speak for myself personally. I mean, I believe practice execution becomes game reality. So if you're able to execute in practice, we should be able to go out there and execute in the game. I know as coaches, we try to make it as tough as we possibly can in practice. So it's actually a little bit easier in the game from situation to situation. That's the thought, that's the process behind it. So if guys, perform well and they make the most of their opportunities in practice and in the game, it leads to more opportunities.
Coach, when are we gonna see a trick play, man? It's been 3 weeks, man. I'm ready to see some. I'm ready to see some magic out there.
Well, it's like every week there's, it depends how the game's going. So we'll see what happens in the future. We keep putting ourselves in good positions, but at some point, we'll see what the future holds.
Josh.
Hey, Danny, we talked about this a little bit last time, but could you kind of just walk us through again your thoughts on how kick returns are becoming more rare and rare in today's NFL game, with them moving up the yardage. And we spoke with Jakeem, I think, yesterday, and he said a challenge to all the kickers to, let them return one and not kick it 9 deep.
Yeah, well, I think it's a combination of some things. I think obviously the kickers are more powerful. They're stronger. And I think especially early in the year, you always see a much higher number of touchbacks with the heat, with the humidity, what have you, based on where you're playing or, around the league. I think some other teams, maybe you're just getting a little bit more comfortable with exactly who you have with your coverage units, without having played preseason games, just getting a little bit better idea of exactly who you have and what you have. And then you couple that with the amount of injuries that you've seen around the league, and again, people, forget that, it maybe not be the special teams player that's injured, but when you lose an offensive and defensive player, now the domino effect happens, and now all of a sudden you lose 2 or 3 guys offensively or defensively. If they're not linemen, those guys are playing roles in the kicking game. So now all of a sudden you got 2 or 3 more guys having to play offense and defense. So you got to, maybe protect those guys a little bit. But I think, like always, as the season goes on and the weather cools down and the ball doesn't travel as far, I think you'll see more and more returns as the season goes on.
Joe Shad.
Danny, obviously just 3 games, but who are a few players who have done well on the coverage teams?
Well, I think Sam has done a nice job. I think we've got to be more consistent as a whole. I think Andrew Van Ginkel has shown up. But I think just overall, when you look at the whole unit, we just got to be more consistent in everything we do. And that's going to come with time. And I think you talk to any coach, and no matter what phase it is, getting that consistency and that, that common where we're not as much sort of playing the play, we're playing the scheme, and then we're going to be in better shape.
Adam?
Danny, website Football Outsiders, an analytics website, has you ranked as the number 2 special teams unit in the league. Number 1 is Seattle. Your thoughts on the matchup this weekend of maybe the 2 best special teams units in the league?
Well, I think they do a really nice job. When you look at their special teams, I think it's a small fraction of what they are as a team and how they play the game. And they play fast, they play physical, they're aggressive, and they got a good nucleus of players. I think anytime you talk about playing well in the kicking game, it always starts with your specialist. And I think obviously the punter's having an outstanding year and has the ability to flip the field when they've been stalled, backed up, and put them in good field position going forward. And then they only had to kick 1 field goal because of how they're playing on offensively. But then, Jason's done a nice job with his kickoffs. You got 2 quality return players. And then the biggest thing, they got a nice nucleus of veteran and young core players, which when you put that all together, it gives you an opportunity for success. But they're well coached, they're aggressive. It's going to be a heck of a challenge.
Al?
Sort of following up on that, I wanted to ask you a little bit about Matt Hawk in the season. He's having 12 punts. He's already got 5 inside the 20. What are you seeing out of him? And I'm curious, do you compare him to other punters around the league? Where do you see him ranking?
Yeah, to answer your second question, I don't really compare guys because it's, the situation is the biggest thing that puts a lot of those things into focus. We've done a nice job moving the ball, where we've been punting the football, and in terms of location, field positionally, gives you more opportunities for those plus 50 balls. And then the down and distance that you're punting the football in has a little bit of determining factor on what type of looks you get. So, it's hard to compare one thing to the next because there's so many things that are involved in what you end up with in terms of, down distance and field position based on what punt you're able to hit, and then, what looks you're getting from the return / defensive stay looks.
Adam?
Your top 2 most played special teams players are Frazier and then Camu's number 2. I wanted to ask you about Camu. How much did you know about him before he signed here? What can you tell us about him as a person? We don't know him particularly well. And could you see his role expanding? It looks like he's playing more in defense. Do you worry about the limits of snaps if he plays a ton on defense and on special teams?
But that's always a concern, that to find that balance in that mix. But obviously knew a lot about Kamu before he came here. Was very productive, player in Philadelphia, high energy, no moments too big for him. Wants to be in there and wants to make the play in a critical situation. So, we're very happy with the addition of Kamu, and we're very happy with how he's playing. And hopefully, you're going to see him continue to improve and play better as the season goes on. But, glad he's on our football team.
All right, we have time for one more. We'll go to Barry.
Hi, Danny. How important is Matt Collins to your units, and how has he played?
Very important, like all those guys, any of these guys that you see playing, 3 and 4 phases, they're critical to what we're doing. They're the catalyst, they're the nucleus, they're the leaders of our group. So, that whole group of players, when you see guys playing 3 and 4 phases for us, we have a high degree of trust in them, and we need a high degree of performance from those players.